What's up, collectors? DK here with Collector's Impact, and today we are going to discuss the PSA 10 specifically. This video is going to be the one-stop shop, everything that you need to know for how PSA determines if a card is 10 worthy and what that, whole process entails. We're going to get into the weeds on this for sure. So if you're interested in getting your cards graded and you're really looking to get that 10, you've definitely come to the right place. Now, I will also say that in this video, we're going to go into all the details around it, and at the end, I'll go ahead and include some tinfoil hat, theories and whatnot when it comes to the 10 in regards to certain types of cards and controversies around that. So if you're also interested in that, definitely stick around to the end, and it might really be some pretty useful information for you. For the actual substantiated, evidence-based getting a PSA 10 topic, let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so first and foremost, this is how PSA defines what constitutes a 10. A PSA Gem Mint 10 card is a virtually perfect card. So keep that in mind for sure. It is virtually perfect. Attributes include 4 perfectly sharp corners, sharp focus, and full original gloss. A PSA Gem Mint 10 card must be free of staining of any kind, but an allowance may be made for slight printing imperfections. If it doesn't impair the overall appeal of the card, the image must be centered on the card within a tolerance not to exceed approximately 55-45 to 60-40% on the front and 75-25% on the reverse. So 75-25% on the reverse is actually pretty forgiving for the back. Now that we have how PSA has actually defines the 10, these are the 6 main attributes that you have to worry about when critiquing your card for grading. The 4 C's plus S and E, and they are centering, corners, clarity, color, surface, and edges. So let's go over each of these in good detail, because basically you have to get a perfect score in all 6 of these categories in order for your card to become a PSA 10, as a general rule. All right, so the first and most important of the C's is the centering of the card. So, as we read there in the description, PSA has a tolerance of, they say 45 to 50, but really 50-50 is perfect centering versus 60-40. So they can have a tolerance of 60-40 for either top-bottom centering alignment or left-right. So what that essentially means is that if your card is 60-40 or better, it can qualify as a PSA 10. And again, what that actually really means is 60% of the border on one side and 40% of the border on the other side or better. 50% over here, 50% over here, or somewhere in the middle. And when it comes to the PSA 10, they do tend to lean more towards that 50-50 perfect centering, especially for certain types of cards. They seem to be a little bit more picky with certain types versus others, looking at Pokemon here. So, yeah, so that's really what that means. Again, 60% on this side, 40% on this side, and or any combination of the top and bottom. That is the absolute threshold when it comes to the front. The back is a lot more lenient than the front. 75%, 25%. So 75-25 ratio. That's pretty intense, tell you the truth. But I have a great example of that. So let's jump into this. I just showed the Pokemon card there because I know those are super popular, and they're really hard to get 10s, and we'll get into that. But yeah, this card is a Rudy from Alpha Investments, Investment Sasquatch promo card from the MetaZoo card game. And I sent this one in using their express service. So yeah, anyway, it did come back a perfect 10. And we'll go ahead and check out the centering. Now this here is an extremely useful tool. I would highly recommend one of these. It doesn't have to be this exact brand. I am not sponsored by this centering tool company or anything like this. This is just a tool that I have in my personal collection. And we'll go over how to use this right now. So you want to get it as centered as possible in the tool itself. And then you want to look at where the borders are here the red, where the red meets the color, and then that will determine your number that you can assign. And you want to get as close as possible. So this one here, the top border, I'm going to go ahead and just estimate that at 3. It's very, very, very close to 3. You can see the black line there. 3, and then the bottom one, it's more close to the dotted line there, which is 4. So you use your little cheat sheet reference card here, and you look at 4 and 3 ratio, boom, boom, 57-43, which is within that 60-40 range. So there you go. And then let's see, left and right, you've got 3 on the left, and on the right, 3 as well. That is damn perfect left-right alignment. So you look over here, 3, 3, 50, 50, perfect centering. So it definitely met the qualification for a grade of 10 on the front because it's within that parameter. But you can see the only problematic centering is the top to bottom, still within the range. Let's go ahead and turn it over. This is where it gets fun. All right, it's centered pretty well in the tool for what it is. So if you look at the top border, it's right there on the dotted line underneath the 1, which is a 2. So 2, and then the bottom border is in between the dotted line and the other line. Let me take a real close look here. Yeah, with the naked eye, it's closer to the dotted line, which is a 4. So 2 and 4. So on our cheat sheet card here, 4-2 is 67-33, and they have a tolerance of 75-25. So it is still within the range, even though if you look at that with your naked eye, that centering is definitely not perfect, so much so that it does stand out, but it is within the back centering range of a PSA 10, you guys, which is that. I mean, it's awesome that the card does get a 10, but there are a lot of cards out there that have better centering and they get rejected, but that's because there's 5 other things to cover. So we'll go ahead and jump into those. All right, so the next C is corners. So for that one, I'll go ahead and use this fun example. This Charizard is from the 2016 Pokemon Evolutions, I believe it's XY Evolutions expansion. This Charizard is extremely popular right now in the market. Having a PSA 10 of this card is worth a lot of money, over $1,000, I'm pretty sure. And this card's centering is definitely in line with the centering rules, as we saw. But it got a PSA 8. Its surface is great. All the other things are great. This particular one failed the corner test. So here we go. Down here in the corner, there is a very, very tiny white nick. And yeah, that tiny white nick, this is how picky they can get, makes it so that the card is not only not gem mint, it's not even mint. So it didn't get a 9. It is between near mint and mint, and it got that 8 because of that tiny freaking white nick in the corner. So yeah, when it comes to trying to get that PSA 10, you want to look those corners over really, really well. And if there is any sign of whitening, you're likely looking at an 8 or 9 if everything else is better on the card. A 10 has to have perfect corners as a general rule. Again, this is all as a general rule. There are always exceptions to these rules. I've seen it. But we're going over if you want to almost guarantee that you're going to get a 10. The next C is clarity. And this one, I don't have a good example of a blurry card to show. But I have an example of a clear card to show. So this is, of course, a Gem Mint 10. This card is crystal clear. In terms of its focus, in terms of the printing quality, it is crystal clear. And that is why it is suitable for a 10. So if you have any card, if your card in question has blurry imagery, any sort of printing imperfection where there may be like double lines or smudges, in the ink, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical smudge, but any sort of imperfection in the actual clarity of the card, You know how that can be with printers and whatnot, you know. If that is present in the card, it's not going to get a 10. It has to be clear, very crystal clear imagery on the card. That is also related to the fourth C, which is color. So sometimes you can have a crystal clear printed image, but if the color is faded, if it looks faded, washed out, or especially if there's any signs of sun damage or anything like that to it, if it looks nasty, faded, smudgy, it ain't getting a 10. All right, and we are out of the C's and into the S's. This card in particular is an obnoxious 9 card from the MetaZoo game, and the S stands for surface. So if you look this card over in the light, you're like, oh, this looks great, until you look real close. There. It is very hard to tell. I mean, right here in this lighting you can. Right there is a surface imperfection on the card in the foil itself. It's a little tiny raised bump, and that is from the manufacturing process that happened in the factory. That is not a scratch or a blemish that was added to the card later or accidentally done to the card by mishandling or whatnot. That is a surface blemish from the manufacturing process. So yeah, and so that's an example of that, things like that. Also print lines, which are extremely common in sports cards, as well as a few other cards, which is just a line that runs straight up the card, and they can usually have a little indent to them as well. A print line is, oh man, such a disastrous thing when you're trying to get that 10, because sometimes those can drop it straight to a 7. So be on the lookout for things like that. Little surface imperfections from the manufacturing process. And just to come full circle on that example, here's the other card, and you can tell same exact card, and that surface is flawless. So if there is one that I'm going to send for grading, this one is the candidate. Just got to double check that centering. I think it's pretty good, but I'd double check it with the tool before sending it. But it is, yeah, that's definitely good. All right, and the last key point is edges. The edges of the card. So here you have a PSA 9, and this one unfortunately did not qualify as a 10 because it has edge wear. All right, so as you may be able to notice, on the edge of this card, boom, there is a little bit of white right here. As the card was being cut out from the manufacturing process, there are several actually little tiny imperfections in the border on the edges of the card that make it so that it's not a perfect 10. Yeah, so it did get the 9 because it's not like egregious or anything. It's not outrageous, but it is enough to not qualify to be a perfect 10. Another example of this is a card that I really did want to send in for grading eventually. The card is beautiful, surface is beautiful, corners are beautiful, everything is good, centering is great, except, boom, up in the corner, there is an imperfection on the edge of the card. It's a little raised bit on the edge of the card. That's from where the cellophane wrapper was on the deck of cards. This is from a starter deck, and it's where the cellophane wrapper was right there. So it gave it a pressure mark on that edge. This would definitely not be able to qualify as a 10 because of that. That edge is going to knock it down to a 7 or maybe even lower because it's actual physical damage to the card. Damn. Let's go ahead and look at this PSA 3. So if your card, I mean, this card to me is a beautiful card. It's absolutely freaking gorgeous. And it even has a swirl and everything, which is really popular in Pokemon. But it does have pretty much all of the issues, so that's why I busted it out. It's got corner wear damage, it has edge wear, it has surface blemishes, it is slightly faded in some areas. It is from 1996. You can especially see on the back. The back has some slight discolorations and a little bit of fadings to it. Centering is fine, but yeah, you've got lots and lots of edge wear. There's even a little bit of surface stress marks and stuff on this particular card. The Focus isn't the best for this one because it's in a very reflective case, but I think you get the picture. This card was used in play, so you see the raised edge. So it's got lots and lots of signs of use, and therefore they gave it a 3. All right, so to bring it all home, let's go ahead and adorn a tinfoil hat, you guys. If you're trying to grade Pokemon cards specifically, those cards are extremely, and I mean extremely hard to get a 10 on these days, as is evidenced by this card, plus over 100 other ones in my collection at this point. The 9s are even becoming hard to get, but the 10s are unicorns. And this card, for example, is a pack fresh Venusaur reverse foil fireworks reverse foil pattern from the Legendary Collection. God, it's such a mouthful, I can't even remember. But the centering on the card is beautiful. It has no edge wear, no corner wear. Surface is flawless. It is pack fresh. There is not a single scratch on this card. There is no logical reason that I have found that this should be a PSA 9. Other than, here's the tinfoil hat, the fact that the PSA 9 is worth about $1,000 and the PSA 10 is worth many thousands of dollars. So it would be worth, I don't know, at least $5,000, probably more than that, if you were to put it to auction. So yeah, the 9 fluctuates somewhere between 500 and 1,000, at least at this current time here in 2021. But yeah, this is a card that I'm going to be holding for life, as I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite pieces in my Pokemon card collection, and I was really hoping for that 10. It meets all the qualifications. The only thing that I can think of is stuff like that, where it might affect the population report for cards that are like, you know, a well-established collectibles in terms of these cards are over 20 years old. There are a lot of big players in the space. There's a lot of people that have PSA 10s, and if you just keep adding a bunch of 10s to the population, it could theoretically lower the value of the existing 10s. So that's the tinfoil hat theory when it comes to the population numbers and stuff, when it comes to high dollar cards, where it's hard as hell to get a PSA 10 just because like it has to be perfectly perfect and just I don't even know, like angelic style of perfect to get a 10 these days. Whereas this card is brand new, year 2021. You can tell by the definitions and everything that we went over with the centering. Its centering is not perfect, but it is well within line for the PSA 10 grading scale. The surface and everything is beautiful. It's a perfect card. The color, the clarity, the corners, the surface. So yeah, it's definitely a PSA 10 candidate, and it got it. Whereas this one is definitely a PSA 10 candidate, and it did not get it. So there's just those kind of little things, and you're going to experience that quite a lot when it comes to the 9 and the 10. There's, you know, it's much, much, much more common to get a 9 than a 10, especially in certain categories of cards versus others. And there's all types of reasons for that. So I would just stress that if you're going to be sending in specific cards, like if you are sending in Pokemon cards, you might want to do a little bit more digging into like the population reports for the cards that you're trying to submit and kind of trying to base some assumptions off of that. Because if the population of a certain card, if it's really hard to pull a 10, there are other reasons non-tinfoil hatty as well, which is just simply that the card itself is just not prone to being created perfectly, or it has some sort of imperfection that's really common on that specific card, and therefore it's hard to pull a 10. So that's one of the things that PSA says and that a lot of the other collectors say. So without the tinfoil hat, that is a valid reason or excuse that some cards are just really, really hard to grade versus other ones. So again, check the population report on the specific card that you're trying to send in and see the ratio of 10s to 9s and so on and so forth to get a general estimate of your probability of at least pulling a 10. Anyway, guys, that wraps up the video for today. I hope that you found this informative and useful. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, as it greatly does help with the algorithms and everything for the channel. Definitely subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and also other PSA reveals, submissions, and discussions around cards, trading cards. I do Pokemon, MetaZoo, Marvel cards, Magic cards, and sports cards every now and then too. So if you like trading cards and stuff, you have come to the safe haven for card talk. All right, guys. Thanks again for coming by. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you again next time. Take care.